Still doing that lab thing. Huh. My brother didn't even look up from his phone when he said it. Just tossed it out there between bites of shrimp cocktail. The way you'd comment on the weather? Casual. Dismissive. Like my entire career was a hobby I hadn't grown out of yet. I set my glass down on the kitchen counter and said nothing. That was the thing about family gatherings at my parents' house. Everyone had a role they'd decided for you years ago. And no amount of reality was going to change it. My brother Marcus was the successful one commercial real estate. Nice car. Wife who wore the same highlights as every other woman in their neighborhood. And I was the younger sister who disappeared into science and came back at holidays looking tired. She's not doing the lab thing, my mother said from the stove. And for half a second I thought she was going to defend me. She works for the government. Some research position. I picked my glass back up. The party was for my father's 65th birthday. My mother had spent 2 weeks planning it. The backyard was strung with lights. The folding tables were covered with the good tablecloths. And about 40 people I hadn't seen in anywhere from 1 to 10 years were circulating through the house with plastic cups and loud opinions. My father's side of the family. Mostly. Aunts. Uncles. Cousins. Neighbors who'd watched me grow up and now looked at me with that particular expression, the one that meant they didn't quite know what I did, but suspected it wasn't impressive enough to ask about Marcus's wife. Dana. I found me by the fruit tray, about 20 minutes in. I keep telling Marcus you should come visit us sometime, she said. Get out of D.C. for a while. It must be so stressful. All that she waved her hand vaguely. Government stuff. It has its moments, I said. Marcus says you basically just analyze data all day. She laughed like this was charming. I could never. I'd fall asleep. I smiled. It's a skill I've developed over years, the smile that reveals nothing. Costs nothing. And ends conversations without leaving a mark. I had driven up from D.C. that morning. 6 hours. Straight through. Because I'd had a meeting run late the night before and couldn't leave when I'd planned. I hadn't told my parents what the meeting was about. I never did. What I do isn't something I explain at birthday parties over fruit trays. And most of the time that's fine. Most of the time, I've made peace with being the family's quiet mystery. That afternoon, though, sitting in my parents' backyard while Marcus held court by the grill, and Dana laughed too loudly at everything he said. I felt the familiar weight of it press down a little harder than usual. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. Work number. I stepped inside. The call lasted 4 minutes. I stood in my parents' hallway, next to the framed school photos that had been on that wall since I was 7, and listened. I asked 2 questions. I said yes 3 times. I hung up. I stood there for a moment looking at the photo of myself at age 9 missing a front tooth. Wearing a t-shirt I remembered loving and took a slow breath. Then I went back outside. The party had gotten louder in the few minutes I'd been inside. Someone had connected a speaker to something country. And my uncle was telling a story that had already made 3 people laugh before he'd reached the punchline. My father was standing near the back fence with 2 of his oldest friends. The way he always stood at his own parties slightly apart. Content to watch. I crossed the yard to him. Hey. Boog. He said. His nickname for me since I was 4. I'd hated it until I was about 26. And then, somewhere along the way, it became the word that meant home. Hey. Dad. I kissed his cheek. Happy birthday. You okay? You've got your work face on. He's always been able to read me. It's inconvenient. I'm fine, I said. I just need to make one more call in a little while. I'm sorry. He waved it off. You came all this way. That's enough. Marcus materialized at my elbow approximately 30 seconds later. Because Marcus has always had radar for conversations he can interrupt. What's the work emergency? He said. He said it lightly. But there was an edge underneath. There's always an edge underneath with Marcus when it comes to me. I stopped trying to understand it about 5 years ago. No emergency. I said. You were on the phone for like 10 minutes. 4 minutes. He looked at me. You know, most people, when they come home for a family thing, they actually come home. I didn't answer that. Marcus, my father said, with just enough of a warning in his voice that Marcus shrugged and turned back toward the grill. I stayed by my father for a while, listening to his friends talk about a fishing trip they were planning, watching the light go golden over the yard. For about 40 minutes, I let myself just be there. Ate a plate of food, talked to my aunt about her garden, helped my mother carry out the birthday cake, and sang off key with everyone else while my father blew out candles and looked genuinely, quietly happy. I was washing my hands in the kitchen when my phone buzzed again. 2 messages. Then a third. I read them. Dried my hands. Went to find the one person at this party who needed to know what was about to happen. My mother was in the kitchen alone when I found her, transferring leftover potato salad into containers with the focused efficiency she brings to everything domestic. She looked up when I came in and immediately read my expression the way only mothers can. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, I said. But I need to tell you something. And I need you to stay calm. She set down the container. I told her that within the next 2 hours, there was going to be some activity in the area that she'd probably notice. That there was nothing to worry about, it was routine. It was managed. It wasn't a threat. I told her she didn't need to tell the guests anything. But if she wanted to move the party inside in the next 30 minutes or so, that would be fine. She stared at me. What kind of activity? I can't give you details. I'm sorry, Rachel. Her voice dropped to the register she's used since I was a teenager when she needs me to be straight with her. What is going on? I need you to trust me, I said. That's all I can say right now. Trust me. She looked at me for a long time. Then she nodded once, tightly, and picked the container back up. I went back to the party. The next 20 minutes were normal. Or they looked normal. I moved through the backyard, talked to people, refilled my water. I kept my phone in my hand with the screen dimmed. I watched the time. Marcus found me by the dessert table. You're doing it again, he said. Doing what? That thing where you're somewhere else while you're standing right here? He crossed his arms. You've been doing it since you were a kid. Like we're not interesting enough. That's not what it is. Then what is it? Because from where I'm standing, you show up twice a year. You barely talk to anyone. You take mysterious phone calls. And you walk around like you've got some giant secret that makes the rest of us look small. He shook his head. It's exhausting. Rachel. It really is. I looked at my brother. I thought about the 4-minute phone call. I thought about the messages. I thought about everything I'd spent the last 8 years building. Quietly. Without asking anyone to notice. I hear you, I said. He waited for more. There wasn't more. He made a sound of frustration and walked away. Dana appeared at the edge of my vision. Having clearly watched the whole thing from a safe distance, when Marcus had made it back to the other side of the yard, she drifted over to me with the expression of someone delivering a verdict. He's not wrong. You know? She said. You've been distant since you got here. Your mom notices. Your dad notices. She tilted her head. Whatever you do up there in D.C., I hope it's worth it. Because you're missing your own life. Standing here, I looked at her. I hope you enjoy the rest of the party, I said. At 7:15 p.m. 2 black SUVs pulled onto the street in front of my parents' house. I was already at the front door. A man I knew by name but had never met in person came up the front walk. We shook hands. He confirmed my identity. I confirmed the situation. We spoke for about 90 seconds. And then I turned and went back inside to find my mother. I need everyone inside, I told her. Kindly. No alarm. Just inside. She did it with the same competence she brings to everything swept through the backyard. Kept her voice pleasant. And mentioned that there was cake inside, and the evening was getting cool. Within 10 minutes, 40 people had migrated into the living room and kitchen without fully understanding why. Marcus caught me in the hallway. What is happening? Please stay inside, I said, away from the windows. Rachel, Marcus. I kept my voice level and low. I need you to listen to me right now. Not as my brother. Just as someone who trusts that I know what I'm doing. Can you do that? He stared at me. Something in my face must have gotten through. Because after a moment he took a step back and nodded. I went back to the front door. Outside, the street had changed. 2 more vehicles. Uniformed personnel at the perimeter. A quiet, efficient transformation of my parents' ordinary suburban block into something else entirely. My father appeared behind me. Bug, he said quietly. I know, I said. I know this is a lot. Is everyone safe? Yes. Everyone is safe. I turned to look at him. I promise you that. Okay. He looked at the street. He looked at me. Then he put his hand briefly on my shoulder and said, Okay, and went back inside. I should explain. Here. What I actually do. I'm a senior research scientist on a federal interagency task force that advises on emerging biological threats. That's the version I can say out loud at birthday parties. If I wanted to, I usually don't. Because the next question is always so like bioterrorism, and then the conversation goes somewhere that isn't appropriate over potato salad. 8 years ago, I was 24 and finishing my Ph.D. at Johns Hopkins when I was recruited through a process I still can't fully describe. I spent 2 years embedded with a research unit at Fort Detrick. I spent the next 3 on rapid response protocol development. For the last 3 years, I've been on the advisory tier, which means I occasionally get the kind of phone calls that require me to step out of my parents' hallway and take slow breaths next to my 3rd grade school photo. I don't make a lot of money compared to Marcus. I drive a 6-year-old Honda. I've missed more family events than I've attended. I don't have a husband or a girlfriend or a dog. What I have is a security clearance that most people will never know exists and a body of work that has, on 3 separate occasions, contributed to decisions that prevented something I can't name from becoming something most people would never forget. That is the thing I carry around family parties without being able to put it down. Atop 2 p.m. A helicopter came in low from the north. I was standing on the front porch. I heard it before I saw it, that specific heavy percussion. Unmistakable once you know it. It banked once over the neighborhood and then settled somewhere 3 blocks over. Into the high school athletic field we'd arranged as the secondary landing point. Dana opened the front door behind me. Rachel. There is a helicopter, I know. Please go back inside. What is Dana? I turned. Please. She went inside. My phone rang. I answered. Listened. Said yes. Hung up. 2 minutes later, a motorcade turned onto my parents' street. It wasn't large. That's not how it works when it's informal. When it's unscheduled. When the visit is happening because someone's itinerary shifted for reasons I'd been briefed on that afternoon. 3 vehicles. Clean. Fast. Quiet. They stopped in front of my parents' house. The door of the middle vehicle opened. I walked down the front path. I had met him once before. Briefly. In a context I can't describe. He was taller than I expected the first time. And that hadn't changed. He came down the steps from the vehicle and walked toward me with the unhurried directness of someone who has long since stopped needing to perform. We shook hands. "Dr. Hayes," he said. "Sir," I said. We spoke for about 6 minutes, standing on my parents' front walkway in the early August evening. It was a working conversation. A decision had been pending, and he'd wanted a direct consultation before signing off on something. That's why I'd gotten the call that afternoon. That's why this was happening. It was professional. Not ceremonial, but behind me, through the front window of my parents' house, I could see the shapes of the people who had been mocking me over shrimp cocktail approximately 4 hours earlier. I didn't look. I didn't need to. When the conversation ended, he shook my hand again. "Good work," he said. "On all of it?" Then he got back in the vehicle, and the motorcade moved on. I stood on the front path for a moment after the last vehicle turned the corner. The street was quiet. Someone a few houses down had come out onto their porch and was standing there with a completely blank expression, like their brain was still trying to load what they'd seen. I understood the feeling. I turned and went back inside. The living room was very quiet. 40 people who had been loud and full of opinions all afternoon were now standing or sitting in various positions of stillness, looking at me with expressions I didn't have easy names for. My mother was by the kitchen doorway, with her hand over her mouth. My father was sitting in his usual armchair, and his face held something I hadn't seen on it in a long time, something that looked quietly like awe. Marcus was standing in the middle of the room. I looked at him. He looked at me. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. "Rachel, it's fine," I said. "Everything is fine. The party can go back outside if anyone wants." That was he stopped. He seemed to genuinely not have the architecture for what he wanted to say. Dana, behind him, had gone very still. "I owe you an apology," Marcus said finally. His voice was different, quieter. The edge was gone. "I think I owe you a significant apology." I looked at my brother, at the person who had spent years summing me up in a tone of voice that reduced everything I'd built to a punchline, and I felt something move through me that wasn't quite anger and wasn't quite forgiveness. Something in between. Something that needed more time. "You don't have to do this right now," I said. "I think I do." "Marcus." I put my hand briefly on his arm. "It's Dad's birthday. Let's just be here for that." "Okay." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. My father cleared his throat from his armchair. "Well," he said, in the voice he uses when he's trying very hard not to show that he's emotional, "I don't know about anyone else, but I think I'd like another piece of cake." Someone laughed. Then someone else. And then the room came back to life. The way rooms do after the extraordinary has passed through, and people need somewhere to put themselves. My mother caught my eye from across the room. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. "Lauder?" After the guests had trickled out, and the tables were cleared, and my parents' house had returned to its ordinary quiet, I sat on the back porch steps with my father. The lights were still strung up over the yard. Someone had forgotten to take them down. Or decided not to. And they threw a soft gold across the grass. "Can I ask you something?" my father said. "Sure." "How long has it been like this for you?" I thought about it honestly. 8 years. I said. "Give or take." He was quiet for a moment. "You never said." "I couldn't. A lot of the time. And when I could, I paused. I don't know. I didn't want to make it a thing. It's just work. It's just what I do. It's not just what you do," he said. I didn't argue with him. "I'm sorry," he said. "If we ever made you feel like it was less than it is." "You didn't," I said, and I meant it. Mostly. My father had never mocked. He'd been confused. Sometimes. and distant in the way of parents who don't have a framework for a child who exceeds the frame. But he had never been unkind. "Your brother," he started, "is figuring it out?" I said. "He'll get there." My father nodded slowly. "He loves you. He just doesn't know how to say it when he also feels." He searched for the word small. I offered. Gently, he exhaled. "Yeah." We sat there for a while, not talking. The lights moved a little in the breeze. Somewhere down the street, a dog was barking at something. "Best birthday I've had in 20 years. My father said finally. "For the record." I laughed, "a real one. The kind that comes up before you can decide about it. I'll try not to arrange a motorcade every year." I said. "Maybe every other year." He said. "Keep things interesting." I stayed that night. And the next morning. And didn't drive back to D.C. until Sunday afternoon. Marcus found me before I left, caught me at my car. Hands in his pockets. Looking like he hadn't slept well. "I've been thinking about what I said yesterday." He started. "The stuff about you being distant. Acting like we're not interesting enough." "Marcus, let me finish." He looked at the ground. Then back at me. "I think I said that because it was easier than saying I've never understood you, and that scared me. It's easier to make it about your attitude than about the fact that you left and became someone I don't recognize. And I didn't know how to deal with that." I looked at my brother. "That's a lot of self-awareness for a Sunday morning." I said. He made a sound that was almost a laugh. "Dana and I talked until 2 a.m. Dana's smarter than she seems." I said. "Don't tell her I didn't know that." I smiled. He smiled. It wasn't fixed, nothing that old and layered gets fixed over a driveway conversation, but it was something. A door cracked open. The possibility of a different way forward. "Call me sometime." I said. "Not at holidays. Just call." He nodded. "Yeah. Okay." I got in my car. I drove back to D.C. I had a briefing Monday morning and a report due by end of week, and a decision pending that I'd now had a direct conversation about, which meant the next phase of my work had shifted in ways I'd be thinking about for months. I had not become someone different at my father's birthday party. I had not had a revelation, or a transformation, or a triumphant moment I'd been building toward for years. I had just been exactly who I am. In front of the people who had never quite been able to see it. Sometimes that's all it takes. Not the speech. Not the argument. Not the carefully constructed explanation of everything you've built while they weren't paying attention. Just the moment when the world confirms what you already knew. Quietly and without asking your permission, and the people who doubted you have to decide, all on their own, what to do with that. I already knew who I was. Now they did too.